My first connection with what was then Hospice of Larimer County began in 1990.
My mom actually took the first hospice patient in Fort Collins when it was a volunteer organization, and I think that was in 1978.
My first time when I met anyone officially from hospice was in 1994 when my grandmother was referred to hospice care.
Way back in 1992, and I might cry. My mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer.
My mom was actually a hospice patient for about 6 weeks before she died.
Little did I know then that 3 months later our daughter would be referred for hospice care. She was 4 years old and not expected to live through the summer.
Like so many people, my father was diagnosed with lung cancer that turned out to be terminal, and we looked for help from hospice.
She decided she didn't want any treatment, but she just wanted to go home and have her end of life there. And so eventually it became obvious that we needed more help. And the discussion of hospice came up, and we did finally do that. And it turned out to be a life-changing experience.
I started out, I did the volunteer training, which even with all my nursing background, that had to be one of the best trainings I ever did. And I knew I was in the right place. And I think my involvement on the board, there were a lot of decisions made, and now the pediatric palliative care and hospice program, I think, is definitely necessary and really touches my heart.
We learned early on that music was a big part, played a big part in Abby's life. This little wordless one who never communicated in the typical way that we communicated. Music transcended her ability to understand, and it was profound. The 15 years of concerts that we did to benefit Pathways Hospice and Respicare, it was a way which at the time I thought a very small way, but it was what I could do to give back. And that's the message even now, is what can each one of us do to give back to programs that have made a difference in our lives. And just because we're done as a patient or a particular segment of that journey, don't walk away. I mean, we're here for each other.
A friend of mine was volunteering here, and she said, "Why don't you volunteer at Pathways?" And so at that time I thought, well, I'll at least ask the question. I became a volunteer courier. Got me in the door and got me meeting people and seeing what the program was about, and it just confirmed that this is a place I wanted to be there for and serve. The year after I started volunteering as a courier, I was asked to be a board member, so I did. And I served on the board for 6 years. Earl Sethry and I were asked to be co-chairs of the capital campaign, and we were successful in raising the money and creating this wonderful space for the counseling center. So at the end of my board experience, or toward the end, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I resigned from the board, and I still wanted to stay involved. So at that time, I had been attending the Abbey concerts and loved them. I mean, they just touched my heart. And the things that I have been able to do here and the people that I've known, I mean, it's just a safe place for me to be here. And it makes me feel good that I've been able to give back to this organization.
Hospice came to me and asked if I would be interested in serving on the board. I felt like it was an opportunity for me to give back, if you will, for all that they gave to me a couple years before. I served on the board from 1993 to 2006. It's one of the best boards I've ever served on. During that time, hospice was really growing. When I started, there were about 20 patient census days. And when I left, there were over 100. And we needed to build a building. And I was involved in 2 capital campaigns at hospice for both of these buildings that are on this campus now. I learned a lot. I learned the reputation that hospice has. I learned that Loveland is a very generous community, and I never had a bad experience when I talked about hospice. After 2006, my service on the board was over, but my commitment to hospice has not changed. I always will have some involvement or some commitment to hospice. I think it's in very good hands. We're fortunate now to have Nate Lampkin here as its director, and Marcia Seskin. There's just a lot of energy, and these people are special people that can do the job that they do for end-of-life care.
I think hospice, between the chaplains and the nurses and the CNAs and the social workers, I just think they have more heart. You know, they're not out for the dollar, they're not out for profit or how much money you can bring in or whatever. They just care about taking care of the patients. And I think the people that work here have to have that kind of a mindset and a heart that they are happy to work in a place that is a nonprofit. They don't just take care of the patient, they take care of the whole family. The staff is awesome. The staff really makes Pathways.
I have a very good friend who was a nurse here, Dottie Childers, for many years, and she would go out at 2 or 3 in the morning on these cases and hold hands with dying people. It's just amazing the work that they do, and I am so proud and happy to be connected and be a part of Pathways Hospice.
This circle of people who were there for Abby, there for us as a couple, and there for our boys, it did make all the difference. We wouldn't have made it.
I mean, those are uncharted waters. I mean, how do you, what happens to your marriage after you lose a child? And what happens to your kids? And, you know, you just, I mean, my fear was that, you know, our family would somehow not make it. And we made it. And, you know, Pathways was a huge part of that. Hospice was a huge part of that.
And I remember about 2 months before she died, I was talking to Brian, who was the CEO of hospice at that time, and I said, Brian, is Abby's care a burden for Pathways? And he looked us straight in the eye and he said, if we can't take care of the Abby Frenches of the world, we're not doing our job.
These folks were like our family, and still are. It's like I almost want to shout, you can't go anywhere else. And because, you know, they're not about making money. They're about giving this radical care, and we know and have experienced all these ways. It wasn't just for Abby, it wasn't because she was this cute little girl. That's what they do every time, and I feel kind of sad when somebody goes somewhere else, and it's, I don't mean this to be a pitch. Well, I do in a way, because I do mean it to be a pitch, because I know exactly what kind of care they're going to get.
Pathways offers such a broad spectrum of services. I mean, the counseling services that they do for children and for widows, and, you know, just a lot of levels that they offer here that others don't. And then the planning for the Children's Healing Garden is just going to be a wonderful gift to this community, because they are dealing with a lot of kids that are grieving for various reasons, and that'll just be a wonderful place to help that process. It's so wonderful to be here tonight. This is such a great gift, and I'm so proud to have been a part of Pathways for so many years, to watch this organization grow and provide such wonderful service to our community. It's so touching for me. And I'm so glad to be a part of this. It just is. It's a gift that I've had for a long time, and I will continue to support this. And I am so thrilled to be surrounded by the other honorees that are here, the wonderful people that are here, my friends and family that have supported Pathways over the years along with me.
you.